Hi everybody, I'm speaking to you from a seated position so that you feel like we're friends on a level with one another rather than me being evil and manipulative. But we at the mainstream and completely trusted news media and entertainment media, who have been feeding you a carefully crafted mixture of truth and falsehood to disinform you and control your perceptions. And now that for about the last year we've been feeding you terror-inducing images of extreme organized street violence focusing on, depending on which group you're on, if you're in the white person group, we've been jazzing you up with the idea that all black people are murderous and out to kill you, and we keep showing you clips through news and print media of leaders of these black groups specifically saying that they want to murder you, seize your homes, shoot your children, and murder each other, as well as engaging in widespread property damage, hijacking, extortion, the killing of minority business owners and children, and so on. And if you're black, we've been jazzing you up with the idea that all white people hate you, that you are emancipated from slavery 14 and a half minutes ago, and that you have a legitimate cause for grievance against white people alive today who, although they didn't actually enslave you and their parents and grandparents didn't, they are responsible for things that people did in the past. And so your anger and rage and fury and hatred towards them, which we have been fueling, is completely justified. And in fact, you should go buy a gun and kill some of them, especially kill their children, and even kill your own neighbor's children who are the same color as you. So thanks for cooperating with all of that, both white people for now being in a state of almost apoplectic fear of black people, which we have fueled, and thanks for black people cooperating and behaving in a way that helps to foster that fear, despite being a supposedly anti-racist movement. We've got you worked up to a fever pitch. So congratulations and thanks to all of you, both black people and white people, for cooperating and going along with our plan. Which is why we would now like to introduce a new concept to you, piggybacked on a familiar concept to make it more acceptable to you. This is the idea that when you go out in public as a white person, if you have never been racist in your life before, you're probably quite fearful now of being attacked for no reason, shoved in front of a moving bus, or shot in the back of the head, or maybe shot in the face, or assaulted with a bike lock, or any other form of direct person-to-person violence every time you see a black person out in public, even though it's never been a problem in your life in the past. It might be a problem now. We've worked you up to a fever pitch, and black people, thanks very much for going along and participating in all of this violence to help us drive this racial division and fear and paranoia. So the concept we would like to introduce, piggybacked on a familiar and acceptable concept, is that of the designated racist. Now, nobody wants to be a racist. We've been telling everybody for years and years that racism is bad, and I think most of you agree. It's wrong and bad to look at people in a different ethnic group as threatening or as diminished human beings or as in some way subhuman or lesser than you. That's actually bad thinking. It's tribal, it's primitive, and it's regressive. However, we've got you all worked up into a state of almost apoplectic fear, as well as a state of deep confusion, because we keep showing violent riots on TV and calling them peaceful, and then we keep denouncing anybody who shows the slightest possible awareness of their own safety. We call them a racist. So you're not allowed to be concerned for your own safety, in spite of the fact that we show you continuous scenes of extreme racial violence targeting you. We like to focus on things like truck drivers being pulled out of their trucks and beaten unconscious by ethnically diverse crowds. And remember, that truck driver is the proxy for you, in the same way that Luke Skywalker is the proxy for the normal person in the wild and crazy imaginative science fiction world of Star Wars. Booker being killed, being assaulted, that's you, and that's on purpose. We've done that on purpose to terrify you. So when you go out with your friends in the city that you live in, which is probably a peaceful place, unless it's run by Democrats, but we don't want to point that out. Here's the concept we'd like to introduce to you now that we've worked you into both a fever pitch of terror and rage, as well as a state of deep confusion, because we don't allow you to have concern for your safety in spite of the constant danger that we show that you are in on the news. And so now we would like to introduce our concept, which we're going to indoctrinate you into accepting. We're going to piggyback this onto a familiar and positive concept, and that is that when you go out to a restaurant or to a club or to a party with a group of your friends, you like to have a good time and you like to get a little bit loose and you like to loosen your social inhibitions, which means you like to have a drink of alcohol or two. But you also don't want to, at the end of the night, go home and get in a car crash or accidentally kill somebody. And so there is a familiar concept, a familiar pattern of behavior where you select among your group of friends a designated driver, and it's that person's job to get the rest of you home safely. Now, nobody wants to be the designated driver, but it is a position of prestige and responsibility because you're keeping your friends from harm. We're going to hijack that concept now and designate somebody to take care of you and prevent you from getting assaulted by a racially motivated hate mob, the thing that we've been jazzing you up and stoking your fear about for the last year by showing you terror violence images on television of proxies for you being assaulted and murdered and killed and having their businesses burned and dragged out of their vehicles and so on. But you don't want to be a racist. We've made that very clear. That's an unacceptable point of view. So if you take direct personal responsibility for your safety, you're clearly a racist. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a social movement where you have a designated racist. And that's the person that nobody wants to be, just like nobody wants to be the designated driver. But that designated racist is there to keep an eye on surroundings and make sure that you don't actually end up with your back turned having somebody walk up behind you and club you over the head with a bike lock or shove you under a moving train because you're white and they're black. And they've been stoked by us, by the way. They've been conditioned by us the same way that you've been terrorized. They've been conditioned to hatred and rage against you because of your skin color. Once designated racists are an accepted norm, we'll begin putting on training seminars for designated racists, which will look like basic personal security training, but will actually be political indoctrination so that the designated racist is actually a political informant telling us, your controllers and your masters, the media and the government, of any deviations from allowable thought, specifically deviations into thought crime. Thanks very much for your I'm not supposed to tell them that part?